Hello world, this is Robert Pedersen, the developer. It's been a while since I've done one of these live streams, but I wanted to go ahead and uh, do a quick little session here. So today we were working on a Lambda School project to get us familiar with less and preprocessors and how to use mix-ins with variables and importing them all into a master less sheet or LESS, and that's the processor that we were working with today is less. And as we were working through it, I stumbled upon a really amazing article, and I'll post that link to that article here in the description, and that you can kind of work from there as to where I'm at. But I'll also walk you through it. So let's go ahead and get started. So real quick here, as you can see, I don't pay attention to any of these things here. I mean, you can look at it. I mean, I have my CSS sheet up here, along with my less files that are down here. And this index.less, this is just kind of the one that is being watched by my uh, less compiler or less watch compiler tool. And again, I'll post some instructions here and some information in the description. But also, feel free to comment in my video, and I'll also respond to you and let you know how I did it and where I got the information from. But anyway, so we got the less preprocessor set up, so that way, whenever I make an update in any of my less files, it will automatically output to this CSS file, which is the whole concept behind a preprocessor. But it comes with it's basically CSS but on crack. It has a lot of tools, a lot of added tools, I should say, added benefits. Now, what I want to show you is something I think is amazing. So, a media query. Everyone knows that the media query, well, most everyone knows that a media query looks like this. And there's tons of different formats. You can go to W3 Schools or Code Academy even, and they'll walk you through how to set up a media query. But basically, what this is saying is that the screen, like whenever the screen's width is equal to 500 pixels, and you can don't pay too much attention to this. This is called an escaped variable. It's one of the tools of less. But don't pay too much attention to this here because this isn't going to be very helpful, or it's actually going to cause an issue with what we have. But what you normally have this set up as is under your variables, you just do mobile. Sorry, see, and then you set the max width. One moment. Actually, I already have it set up. All right, so how we have this set up, it's going to be very similar to this, but basically, with this escaped variable, whenever it's used, this string will replace wherever the mobile is. So in this case, this string will pop out here. So what we could do to showcase this is to do this. So now, whenever the mobile is used, it's going to pop out 500 pixels. And I'm not going to show you what the the outcome is because it's going to really screw up what I actually have on my site. But so what's going to happen is whenever you use this specific media query, it's going to pop out. Sorry, I'll select the whole thing. This whole media query right here. It's going to say, uh, max width of 500 pixels, and you can have additional ones. Like you could have here. Let me show you. You can change these for whichever device you're creating the media query for. Come on. And we can say desktop. And then I know this is not the actual values, but bear with me. All right. And then you can have, we'll say this one's 2500 pixels, which, again, incorrect values. I understand. So, with these values, whenever I use mobile or tablet or desktop after this at symbol, it will pop out this escaped value here. So, what I can go ahead and show you is let's do responsive, and then to invoke or call upon this function or this mixin in the less preprocessor, you just type in the class, and in this case it was just dot responsive, and then these two little uh, parentheses, and I'll go more into here in just a little bit. But so now that we've done that, and since we're using the less preprocessor, we can go up to our CSS up here, and then I have it set up differently. So, anyways, when it's set up properly, you're going to have the 500px pop out here, and it's going to, max width of 500px, and everything's going to be really great. Um, we can do, let's see. Oh, actually, I apologize. Just set up a little bit differently. But now what we're going to do is we're going to find, let's see, should be added to the bottom, I believe. Oh, sorry, everyone. Okay, so I forgot, we actually do need to add this to something. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to add it to top border. We're going to save and just double check that the no issues. Good. Okay, so we're going to find top border. And in fact, can we? Okay, and we're going to do top border. All right. So now, as you can see here, this is what we have. So this media only screen right here. So we'll walk through this real quick. So we have this media only screen and a max width of, and since we have mobile, it's going to say 500. But we can change this and do tablet. And now, save, save. And now that we've done tablet, this media only screen is now a max width of 1500 pixels instead of the previous 500. And again, we can also do that for desktop. And you just saw it change. It's now 2500 pixels. Okay, so that's first and foremost, instead of having to type out this media query over and over and over and over, as you can see that this project that I'm about to update currently has media queries on so many different items and so many different places. I mean, media query, media query, media query. Instead of having to type that out in less, I mean, less is already powerful enough, but we want to capitalize and really hone in on its abilities and skills. Because in SAS, another preprocessor, they have a way to use a mix-in like object to get the media query, and less just wasn't functioning with that, or just wasn't on that level until less 1.5. But I personally just found this out yesterday, and I'm I'm all about it because it makes it makes it life so much easier. So basically, what you do, you set up this mixin, and this is a regular mixin value. So you create whatever you want it to say, and then in here is rules. That's basically the rule set. And something even cooler is this. So this is how you would structure it inside the media query itself. And what you can do is, as you can see, you do at rules colon, and then you have these braces. And what this is doing is setting the default value or the base value to be just basically just be empty, so nothing is populated. Now you can certainly go in there later on to populate them, and I'll show you how to do that here in a minute. And then on top of that, we have at width 100%. And then down here, inside the media query that we have set up under this mixin, we have at rules, and then that rules again is just up here. And whatever is inside these curly braces is what's going to be inside or pop out of this mixin. So the rules itself is technically a mixin. Mixin variable type thing. Anyway, so the next thing, then we have width, and we have set that to the width of the viewport, and default is set to 100, and you can change that, and again, I'll show you that here in a minute. And then we have margin 0 auto, so that way it centers everything out from the left and the right, so the even margins. And then we have another mixin inside of the media query, inside of another mixin, which is one of the awesome benefits of less. And I'll show you this here real quick. So we have dot flex and we have at e column. So we can go back to mixins or over to mixins, and now I have dot flex set up. And dot flex is set up so that way it's a regular mixin where I have a bunch of values that are tied to specific callouts, and then those callouts are all set to defaults, and then I can edit those defaults. So previously we saw at e column. Well, the default is at row. So I change it here when I use this media query because we're going, in this project we are going smaller. So in this case, technically, it would look more like this, mobile. And then once you have mobile set up, you're going to want things kind of stacked on top of each other at 100% widths. Well, generally 100% widths, except for some white space. Anyway, so you change flex in an e column, and what that's going to output to is going to say, and we're going to show you how this works. So let's go back to home page, and we're going to go find, where did I put that? Here, nope, that's responsive. Top border, okay. Lost it. I just need to find it real fast. Appreciate y'all's patience. Okay, so there it is. Okay, so top border, and then we have responsive. Now, if we go back to, I'm gonna open this up here. So if we go back here, you can see that we have dot responsive, and then we have rules. So what we could do inside here, what we're gonna do is type in rules, so because we want to override what is currently set as the base default. So we need these curly braces. And then inside these curly braces, let's say we have a P element, okay? So we're going to put in curly braces, and let's say we want color black, okay? And then let's say we have a section, and we want background, I can type, I promise, background color to be blue. And then let's say, and this is going to really make things funky. Um, And again, this is all every time I'm creating a new item to edit or affect, we're going to do the tag as normal, CSS, and then we're going to do the curly braces just as you would normally here. Like you can see, here's an ID, the column flex is the name, and then I have a curly braces, ends with curly braces, and then let's see here, where were we? Background color blue. In fact, let's go ahead just to show you, we're going to get rid of this, what's in here, and we're actually going to create what's down here. So let's do H2, oops, H2, and then we'll do text align left, and then get out of that one. There we go. Get out of that one. And, oh, it looks like we had another property in here. We're going to do dot flex. And we're just going to go ahead and copy everything here. And yes, you can do mix-ins inside of this, which really shows the power, in my opinion. And then, again, all inside the master rule set. And then outside of the rules, the next thing that we have is width. So now we could change at width. Let's go 50%. And then we'll end that here. All right, what is it expecting? That's what it is. It's outside. Okay. Again, just make sure that You have it correct. Oh, we'll do. There we go. Okay, got it working. Okay, so now keep your eyes on this because this is what's going to be affected. We're going to hit save, and we double check. Alright, it's having an error, and that's why it's not updating. I don't think we need that. Nope. Just want to double check, make sure. Okay, we got that. This is why it's always important to keep track of what you're doing, folks. So that way you don't go on live streaming and make a fool of yourself. Okay. Has an error. Where's the error? Let's see, dot flex. Okay. So that needs to be there. And then we have duh. Okay. We just basically need to separate that. And then we can get rid of this. Actually, I think we need that back. Yep, we need that. Okay. Now what are you saying here? Saying expression expected. What am I missing? There we go. All right. Indention. It gets really difficult here, but you're going to see the power of what we're doing. Just make sure that every opening and closing parenthesis or curly braces or bracket is there. Still says that there's an error. Is it here? Let's see. Okay. I see what happened. Again, goes back to the curly braces, folks. Okay. We're going to save. And for some reason, it still says that there's an error. So, what could it be? It's in the CSS file. Oh, that's what it's going to do. Um, for now, we will just ignore that. It should allow us through. Okay. Just want to double check, make sure the CSS processor is still going. That might be why we're having. Oh, well. I don't think it's going to let me show you all that we just did. But what would happen? Let me find it again. It'd be helpful if I was in the right file. There we go. Okay, so what it would do by following this method here, if I didn't have as many errors as I did, just because I've been editing some of the files. In fact, you know what? Let me just change this. We're gonna do max width. It won't, since we're not gonna, since I'm not gonna show you the site anyways. It's gonna be just fine if I change this back. Um, there we go. All right, so here you're gonna see it's gonna say max width of max width. We're just for our benefit, we're gonna get rid of this. There we go. And let's check our log. Okay. All right. So now what you see here, after that long ordeal, after what you see here is we have the top border. And the top border, it has the media only screen. You can tell that this is ours because it has that max width, max width. So what we're going to do is now, as you can see, we have this H2. We can scroll down, and now our top border with H2 has all the content from here. So that's how we know that that is, well, let me see, because that says column and that says row. Where did you go? Oh, that's right. Okay, so yeah, so there we go. So we have the top border, and this is the column flex items here. Now, when you do nesting like this, you make sure one that you have a viable product because that's what's going to make it all work and make you not look like a fool. But the biggest thing I'm trying to get across here is not only can you use a mixin for just regular items here in the CSS. I'm gonna go ahead and save this real fast. Not only can you use mixins, but you can also set the mixins to be a media query. So that way, instead of having at media at mobile, because this way it's going to escape this line right here and output at media max width of 500 pixels. And I can even show you media max width 500 pixels, just like that. Now, instead of having to type out the app media app mobile, you just type in this dot responsive, and then all of a sudden you have all the values from that you type in, including other mixins, and then you can also add values if you use this at rules set, and then on top of that you can so you have the ones that you uh, deemed from the beginning or set as default, if you will. And then you have ones that you can add, and then you can have added in other add-ins. Now, I'm sure there is a way, but I'm not sure of one as of right now, to be able to edit the add-in that you have, or I'm sorry, not the add-in, the mix-in that you have inside of the media query, all inside of the mix-in itself. But generally, when you set it up, in fact, 100% of the time, because I'm now thinking that you can't, 100% of the time, make sure that when you use a mix-in inside of a media query, inside of another mix-in to make sure everything is set up easier for you, make sure that you always have the mix-ins inside to be exact or specific to that purpose or use. So you may want to have like media queries, and then again, or not again, but I highly recommend that you comment everything out. That's like 101 for web development and programming. I'm sure you're already aware of that. But anyway, so I would probably even go so far as to say, as creating multiple mix-in value variables. Make sure they're different names, of course, and then comment as to which ones they are, what they do. So it's just something specific, so that way you can remember later on. And then that way you can make sure that the mix-ins are specific to that section. Like say you're trying to affect specifically the footer or the header of the page or all the links on the page. That through mix-ins or even through the media queries in the mix-in, just make sure that those nested mix-ins are set up properly. All right, rant over, I promise. Okay, so long story short, you can create a mixin that holds values to make your CSS shorter. The whole purpose of CSS or whole purpose of less and Sass and other preprocessors. On top of that, you can now nest media queries inside of a mixin, which holy crap takes a 14 line or so preprocessors create. You can have nested less folders, like you see here. I have a ton of these, and they're all nested inside this index less folder file. And then, so that way you can break up web pages into specific spots. So that way, in traversing thousands of lines of code, you're traversing 200 lines of code, which makes it a lot easier when you're trying to figure out how things work. And then now, instead of having 200 lines of code with media queries, well, at least when it comes to media queries specifically, you can now have, say, 150 or even 100 lines of code in your less file because your media queries are now just one line. As you can see here, all we have to do is type in dot responsive, and then we have a completely working media query that works without a problem. And then through more uh, intense or